And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly. This is Adventures in Woo Woo. This episode I want to talk a bit about the whole idea of using the elements or the correspondence of, earth, wind, fire and water, heart, if you go back to Captain Planet, but we'll leave out heart for this, and how you can kind of make a sort of a map or a compass of and where you're situated on it and how to rebalance it and stuff like that. This originally came out of the Epoch study group that we're doing on the Adventures in Woo Woo Discord, organized by the great Abraxas. And after the initial kind of read-through of the main text of the book, we started working with the individual correspondences, starting with the elements. And so far, we have done earth, we have done water, and we're in the process of doing fire. But in the middle of kind of looking at water, I realized for myself just how much I am situated in water, and about how my worldview is kind of based around a very emotional response to things, and even how my gauging of truth seems to come more from, say, an emotional intuition sense than from a rational kind of air sense. People don't know, I suppose I should explain a bit what the different elemental quadrants go for. So say traditionally in the north, if you want to go with that, you would have earth. And earth would be about things that are around, like say, fertility or money or survival or, the planet, the grounding would be part of the earth sphere. It would be around, shelter and motherhood and all of these type of things, these very kind of, and to the point of like basic needs met, that you have enough to eat, you have enough to drink, you have shelter, you can survive through the winter, all of these things. I suppose now the balance earth thing would lead into greed and hoarding and that kind of stuff, and in the negative sense, in the kind of, or in the too much sense, and in the other way, would be not enough. Not having your basic needs met would be a deficiency in the earth element. Fire, which is traditionally in the south, would, although this differs in different teachings and stuff, but it's in the south for me, and that would be like kind of creativity and passions and the fire in the belly and anger, and it has that kind of Aries kind of Mars energy to it. It's like it would be approaching. It would be get out there and getting it done. It's not kind of it's forcing in a sense your will on the world, that kind of thing. But it is more about passions and creativity and something, that whole thing, idea of like it's a burning desire, that kind of stuff, obviously enough. And it's amazing just how much we use the kind of wording in our language that corresponds to these elements. Like you have like that thing of like you have something like airhead, or he's a fiery temperament, or even down to things like grounding and all that. Loads of things that I just can't remember quite at this minute. But when we were discussing it in the Discord, it was like fascinating to see just how many words that are just a normal conversation or normal everyday kind of vocabulary and nomenclature, and that they're all come from this. So then in the West you have water, and water is very much like, it would be like the cups of the tarot, and they all have kind of correspondences to different things, but that kind of changes depending on who you, like some people have, earth is pentacles obviously, and then the swords sometimes are air, sometimes the fire, and so it's the wands then can be kind of done as well. So you make up your own decision on that. But anyway, so water is intuition. Divination would come in under water. Emotionality, intuition, feeling your way through the world, that kind of a thing. And then on the east, you have air or wind, air. There's some debate about this as well, because originally in Empedocles, the wording of what he used for this was kind of argued that it was also ether, which is kind of brings it a bit different. But in this thing, let's just say air. And air would be intelligence and rationality and thinking things through, and for their, seeing it for the truth of it, not how it makes you feel or what, it's like in the 47s, I suppose the correspondence would be the thinker, whereas in water, it would be the seer. The earth element, you could definitely have the mother as an earth element. Road opener too, Ganesha, it has a correspondence with the base chakra, which is, very much, the earth element chakra. For the fire one, I don't really know. Like there's no direct kind of, I suppose, correspondence between the 47s and the fire element in that kind of way. And of course, there is the tables that I've done before where they do all fit roughly into the, not roughly, they fit exactly 40 into the elements, 10 different each, which I hadn't planned, but it does. That's in the Grimoire. But what I mean by that is, while there's definitely earth, or there's definitely fire, like the protester is definitely, part of the fire element. It's not the kind of, so much the epitome of the element in the way that the seer is definitely the epitome of the element of water. So, but there is plenty of fire elements in 47s. Anyway, so we got as far as, we explained them all, and yes, and I wanted to talk about so I find myself very much rooted in the water thing. I've been over kind of, I suppose, emotionality towards things, that even down to how I kind of gauge is something true or not, is that I in some sense say it in my head, or I kind of conceptualize it in some way and let it drop into me, and then I notice how I feel, and that's how I know if it's true or not. And that's a very kind of interesting insight to have, that I do that through the kind of water element rather than a kind of rational, is this true or not, thinking about it. That even when I do that process of having the thinking and, logically working stuff out, I still have this kind of thing of throwing it up into my kind of brain or my kind of center or whatever it is, my internal thing, and seeing how it feels, And of course we have that expression. I'm not sure how that makes me feel, like it's in the sense of when someone says something or I don't know how I feel about that. That's more what I'm pointing at. I don't know how I feel about that, whether that's true or not for me or something. There's that kind of sense of that it's almost truth being in a sense tactile in some kind of form because how it reacts. Of course, NLP has elements of that, as does kinesiology. Particularly has that kind of that a truth will affect your muscle mass, your muscle power, or saying something in some way weakens or strengthens you and stuff like that, which is very woo-woo and stuff. But it's interesting that it kind of comes along with those things. So having come from that and realizing that possibly I'm situated too much in the water element, and that I view the world from all water kind of basing, from an emotional, intuitive, and hardly surprising that I made a divination system, of course, that it would be as well to try and keep all things balanced in the other things and try, this kind of belief shifting idea that we have from chaos magic, that you decide to look at something from a completely different point of view than you normally would, and try and solve your problem from that place. Like how would a Christian solve this problem? How would a doctor solve this problem? How would my mother solve this problem? How would someone who has a completely different view in the world solve this problem? So a couple of things on it. One, I would say that if you find that you are a bit more embedded in one element than the others, then to just kind of, if you have a problem or something that you're trying to work through or need some sort of insight, have a look at it from the perspective of the different elements. Like, so if you were based in a very kind of emotional response to things, and how is it hard? It's very hard not to be given the kind of current climate, but like, how would the earth element respond to it? So it's like, okay, so things are a bit mad, but I have shelter, I have food, if you have both those things. How would fire approach as well? We can't just sit around, feeling in a sense, and come back to me, please. Thank you. Osmo, you're great, but you need a tracking update. For audio only people, my camera's been weird. If you then are sitting around just feeling kind of sorry for yourself, worrying about things, which is very kind of water element as well, feeling sad, all of that, you go, well, how would fire approach this? It would go out and do something, So you kind of go, well, what can I do? What would, how would I get the fire in my belly to create change or whatever, and that kind of stuff. Or again, look at it from the air point of view and really logically think and go, right, the world's a bit fucked, but I can make my surroundings better. What can I do to help? How can I, maybe I can stop looking at social media so much because I can feel that's not good for me, and have a very logical kind of approach to your problem. And then I was kind of thinking as well that it would be interesting that if those political compass maps that you have where people situate themselves on how far left or right or mid or center and half those things that I don't really understand, you could probably see where you are on that, and kind of, I assume the best position would be in the right in the center of the cross where all things are balanced, but perhaps not. Maybe that's expecting too much from your individual personality, that there's a certain amount of leeway that you have as a person, that you're never going to be or needed to be balanced in all these different ways. But I suppose the aim would be to in some way balance. So a daily kind of practice out of that would be that look at each of the elements, and of course there can be other elements as well. There's love and strife that's sometimes put in it, or above and below, and creation and deletion, or there is the above a fifth element, which is the the spirit element as well. You can add that in if you want, and just make sure that each of those things is getting catered to or looked after, or that you're tending to them in some way. That you're looking after your emotional health, you're looking after your shelter, your surroundings, your physical health, in the sense of your house, your family, people around you. I suppose earth, wood, stuff, doing exercise and all that kind of very physical based thing. And then look to the fire and say, have I done something today for my ambitions? Have I done something for my creativity? Have I drawn a picture today? Have I wrote a song today? Have I learned a song? Have I done something that's to nourish my creativity, the fire in my belly, the spark, all of these things? And then some sort of nourishment for your air, for your intellect. Read a book, learn something new, have a kind of think about the subjects, and whatever it is. I mean, and then for spirit, of course, you could have some sort of meditation practice or do some magic or something, whatever is floats your boat in that spiritual area. So yeah, I think it's extremely helpful to kind of look at these things from the point of view of the elements, and maybe get a different kind of perspective on your life, on where you're situated. And then also you have a way of walking through these things, kind of an implication of how to deal with these things. And I suppose for yourself, you're going to have to ask for each element, what is the highest, how does this look in its highest form for a human being? In the earth element, what is the best thing before it turns negatively again, and from needs met to greed? At what point does that look like that to you? Because that line, let's say, would be different. When are you over sentimental in the water thing? When are you worrying too much? And when are you not worrying enough? When are you kind of taking it that the world will look after itself? When maybe you're not taking things seriously enough from an emotional point of view. Maybe, if someone has said something or done something, and you should be more kind of emotional about it, or you should be a bit more worked up about it. It's not just kind of in water sense, that kind of thing of, stop being sad, be happy, and all that kind of thing. It's, sometimes you have to have an emotional response thing. Like, it would be massively inappropriate for your best friend to die and you not to have an emotional response to it. You shut down in the water thing as well. That happened recently, that I noticed in one of the bindings, that I had done that around the death of a pet. And I hadn't realized I'd done it. And then when I realized I'd done it, and I kind of let the flood out of that, I had kind of, in a sense, I'd set up where that some sort of form of the water element wasn't able to flow in general and stuff. Very woo, but I mean, it's true. I think it's the same for the other two. For fire, how much creativity should you do? How much ambition should you have before it becomes a bad thing? Before you're at work too much, and you're neglecting your family, so you're neglecting the other areas. And then seeing how it all balances in together. Anyway, got to the point where I'm rambling, so hopefully that is in some way helpful to you. I'm finding it very exciting. Exciting is maybe too strong a word, but very helpful, and the insights I'm getting from it are good and proper insights. Like, I'm learning stuff about how I approach the world, and the fact that then I can now have a battle plan to get out of it, to work on it. Seems really good. Don't worry too much about whether the elements are true or not. They're probably not. It's just it's a way of looking at the world. Some people want to know, are the spirits or the archetypes, whatever works for you. Embodiments of idea, delineations, or just handy descriptors. Of course, originally they were kind of touted, well, maybe they weren't by Empedocles, but later they were touted as the actual building blocks of the world, in that a tree was made out of these particular 4 elements. But we know that's not true, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Anyway, good people of the internet, until our next adventure, be well, and genuinely, may our best days be ahead. And I hope you're all doing well in each element of your life, and that this year is awesome for you. Be well.